Good morning, Carson.
Hey, Waddy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I didn't want to assume you were on audio just yet.
Yeah, I'm driving in, so I'll be switching to my computer here in a couple of minutes. But
Yeah. Well, thanks for hopping on. Looks like we got a couple of people joining.
yeah,
Congrats on the eco passes in Westminster.
yeah, exciting.
It's a pretty big deal. We'll see if we can get people to use them.
Yeah, we'll try to blast everyone, and hopefully we can get some decent use.
Yeah, I know we're trying to work with Audrey's team and do a little co-plan to make sure we get some usage.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Carson, I'm driving if you can hear me, so I'm going to stay on mute for a good portion of the meeting, if that's okay, until I'm into my office.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. I know it's one of the things I wanted to talk about at the end of the meeting was maybe we need to think about a new meeting time for next year, new meeting cadence and/or time. Seems like we got a little overlap with people's schedules, and we want to make sure this fits. So we can talk about that later.
Sounds good.
Who's J-Poc?
Jason,
Okay.
you might be on the move too. I heard from Nathan this morning that he was taking the 120X downtown, but it was slightly delayed and full. So he missed the first bus, so he's going to be a couple minutes
Oh,
late.
interesting. Maybe that's a conversation for Friday or Thursday, tomorrow at NADA.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few kind of 120X issues, weirdly enough, recently on my alerts, more than normal.
I think people are back in person. Most places are requiring in person.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it snow down in
Just
Denver
like
this
a
morning
light
at all?
dusting, very light dusting. Yeah. It's cold again though.
It is cold.
Although I was in Sweden for Thanksgiving and that was cold
Oof.
with a lot of snow for them in November. So
Sounds nice though.
yeah, it was pretty.
We had our annual Smart Commute kind of dinner parties, Christmas party, whatever you want to call it, on Friday night at our house here, just in the foothills, and there was no snow to start, and then Friday night, as most of you know, kind of became a mess. By the time they left, they all got home safely, but I think it took them an hour or so to get home
Oh my
down the
goodness.
hill.
Yeah, weird weather year so far.
Up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes Nathan. 1, 2, 3.
Are we there yet?
Yes. No, we
All
are.
right.
Now we definitely are. Lisa's coming
Let's
in.
do it quick while we can and while everybody's available,
Yeah.
while we can get the
No.
voting part done at least.
Yes, I appreciate the
There's,
quorum. It's always it's hard at the end of the year, but it's important because we got a couple items we need to take care of, um, just administratively. So I'm going to run through the agenda here today. The first couple of pieces will be pretty quick, and then I'm going to go through kind of our annual review like I did last year and show you that, and then talk about our 2024 work plan at the end of it. That's the layout here for today, but we do have a quorum chair, so we'd be looking for comments or motion on October minutes.
all right. Can I get a motion for the approval of October minutes?
So moved.
Move.
And looks like Nathan had the motion and Waddy had the second. Any comments or questions? I don't see any. Can I get everyone to say yes if you approve?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Motion of the approval of October minutes has been accepted and approved. We're moving on to approval of November and December financial reports.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I appreciate that. So I have two treasurer's reports. We last met in October, so we'll be traveling back in time here to do two of these in one. We can take one motion at the end, combinations for both of these, unless there's necessary edits that need to be made. Our opening balance, we always do the month behind. It's just the way our accountant and I try to do these. Is back in October 1st, we had around $30,000 in terms of an opening balance. We had quite a few deposits back in this time period. Most of them were just delayed payments from a few of our grant programs. So RTD Flex Ride payment, that's for Gene's time. RTD e-bike phase 2, the $9,000 there, roughly you see on line, I guess that's line 3, is a payment for some of the last remaining e-bikes that we're able to deploy. So that's the reimbursement for the actual e-bikes themselves. CO7 payment, this is Tammy's time on our team with the CO7 contract as she does some of the communications work along that corridor while they're setting up for bus service to start pretty soon. That $630 was August, and then April, May, and June, and July kind of all came in one lump sum because they were way behind. That was $2,200. And then Catalyst Public Affairs, you may remember a couple of months ago, they had sent me a membership check and it messed up and got rescinded from my account. Anyway, we fixed it and we got some of that money back in October, $2,000 for their membership for the year. Our debits were pretty normal, a little bit higher than normal just because of one piece. We're usually hovering over that $20,000 a month number. That's our normal kind of outflow per month. Salaries were $13,000. Normal IRS withholdings right around $4,000 to $5,000, depending on how much time some of our part-time employees work per month. And we had normal mileage and phone reimbursements for the month. The only thing I want to point your attention to here that's a little bit out of the ordinary is two items. A cash flow return of $10,000. I was pretty behind on a lot of CDOT invoices a few months back and had to cash flow for payroll out of my savings account. I was able to transfer that back in October, so $10,000 went back. And then local match transfer, that $2,000. We like to put all of our kind of membership money that we get into our savings account for local match to close out the 144 Flex Ride program and just to have it in the savings account so we don't touch it for cash flows unless we need it. So that $2,000 is equivalent to the Catalyst Public Affairs dollars up top. So at the end of the month, we had around $20,000. Our current checking balance as of last night was pretty low, $8,960.43. I just checked this morning and I actually got paid from CDOT, so I'm up to about $20,000 in that account, $19,900 and change. So a slight discrepancy there, but when I did this last night, we were not paid yet. So our current savings balance is still $38,422, as it has been for the last few months. We're waiting on some local match payments to come in. And then our outstanding invoices, I'll go over it here, but won't go over it on the next one. It's pretty high right now, but again, there's a slight discrepancy here because of what happened overnight with CDOT payments. So we're right around this, I guess it would be $55,000 number in terms of outstanding invoices. The vast majority of that is held here in the Flex Ride local match piece. We're still looking for money from Amazon, Denver Premium Outlets. Let's see who else. Some of the local jurisdictions, we had a gap payment we were looking for, and that should close out our roughly $11,000. We're looking to close out the Flex Ride account for local match contributions to RTD. We still have some memberships outstanding. I'm not sure if we'll get those in time or not for the end of the year. Again, these two CDOT payments have been paid, so those are no longer an issue. Our ADCO local match will come in next year, that $29,945. That's our annual kind of payment from Adams County to match our large grant that we get through our Dr. Clark Partnership grant. And then just a few other kind of remaining small pieces, e-bike admin payment and some October and November CO7 payments. I know that's a lot of numbers kind of thrown out there. Questions, comments on November?
Hey, Carson, with all the changes at Amazon, do you need help with different contacts, or are you good?
Yeah, at least I could always use more contacts. I'm working through Sam Bailey, kind of upper level region. To be quite frank, he's been a little bit challenging to deal with.
He used to be my boss.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Well, maybe you can pull a string if you have a good relationship there. He said he would help me
Yeah.
get Den 3 to pay me, but it's been hard to get that money in. We're just looking for $6,250 for them for local match for this last year to close them out of the program.
Okay.
So maybe let's connect offline if you don't mind. I would love to get a little help on that.
Yeah, no problem. And Tarek, who's been more active on our board, he seems pretty responsive, so I could also pull him in.
Cool.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yep.
Any other
That's-
comments or questions? I don't see anybody else coming off mute, so we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve.
Can I go through
the-
the December
Oh,
one first?
sorry.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's all
I
right.
guess we have that
I'm
one
going to
still.
go. This is a lot quicker. It's a lot shorter here, and I'm not going to go through our current outstanding invoices at the bottom. So just to say, we got back in November, which is the previous month, we got some deposits in. We got a local match payment from St. Anthony North of $1,000, thanks to some hard work with Nicole Milo and some of the folks here on the call that we were able to pull that out after they were going to decline to be able to put up local match payment for 144 Flex Ride. We were able to get $1,000 out of them, which we're thankful for. And then some RTD funding, right? Our marketing Q3 invoice came through, which pays for a lot of our events and things. And then our debits were right around that $20,000 number, like I talked about before. We didn't have any strange kind of outstanding things this last or during the November timeframe. It was pretty short and pretty normal, right? Just our payroll fee, salaries, IRS withholdings, MailChimp payments, and insurance were kind of our normal monthly charges for back in November. Our ending balance back then was kind of low, which is normal for this time of year. We kind of hover around that $10,000 to $20,000 number in our checking account toward the end of the year, which is, I know, for years made Karen uncomfortable and it makes me uncomfortable, but that's the way it goes when you start eating down local match on these grants. It's sitting in your account, and slowly by the end of the year, you get a little bit low, and then the next year you refill, and you have to eat it down cautiously over the year's cycle. So that's all I have in terms of treasurer's reports for the November and December.
All right, now any other comments or questions?
Thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and accept a motion from somebody on the November, December treasurer's report.
So moved.
I think that was Kyle moved it. Can I get a
Second.
second? Lottie second. All in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed say no. All right, we'll go ahead and accept the December and November treasurer's report and move on.
All right. Thank you. I know those are a bit of a slog, but especially when we have two of them. So thanks for the comments, and I appreciate your help, Lisa. So next on our list, while we still have a quorum here today, is 2024 Executive Board discussion and vote. Looks like we have everybody in the room. I'm going to go through just 2 or 3 slides here, and then we'll get into a kind of an informal vote to make sure we can have leadership heading into next year. So here's our board from this year. We had chair, vice chair, and treasurer, all 3 in the room here today. Thanks for your service and leadership. And then the kind of group below, we are appreciative of your time and ability to serve on this board throughout the last year. And we would hope that you would be willing to do that in the future. One thing I want to call your attention to is at the bottom, 3 names that were unfortunately kind of had to step off the board throughout the year in different ways, but I wanted to show that they were on the board to start the year and eventually had to step off. Ken Spangler from Google, St. Anthony North, Stephanie Webb was the representative there for some time. And then the general manager at Amazon back then was Joe, and it has since changed to Andrea and has since changed to another person. So it's hard to get that representation from the Den 3 facility. I'd like to have somebody from Amazon on the board, but I think it makes sense to have somebody local that represents maybe that facility, or even just a little bit smaller catchment area. So something we can think about in the future is bringing somebody on that makes some sense. It's just tough when they have such high turnover rates. Here's the slide that kind of lays out our board responsibilities. I know this is not new news to any of you. I just want to say that 2 things on this slide that are going to become important over the next year. I need help identifying 2 to 3 new board members as we get into next year. Maybe it's one from Amazon. Maybe it's one from a different employer. I've asked around to a few people that are kind of overbooked into next year. Premium Members Credit Union has been one of our primary sponsors over the last year. Their sustainability director could not join us. We've had a few other people that have interest, but it just hasn't quite worked out. So I'll need help with more to come about how we engage a few more folks to step into the board in a meaningful way next year. And then next is just helping me in the same vein as we go into fundraising efforts for next year. Membership funding has been a challenge for all of us. We want to make sure that since we're growing our budget in terms of grants, we want to have that kind of cash on hand for membership funding, even if it's smaller amounts, but more volume. We want to make sure we have that money available to go out and do what we need to do to accompany those grants with a kind of overhead fees. So questions, comments on board responsibilities before I get into the hopeful vote for 2024?
I just had one thing as well on the previous slide. Isn't Troy rolling off? He's retiring in March, I believe, so he'll roll off next year, I guess.
That's right, Chair. I haven't had final confirmation from Troy, so I was giving him the benefit of the doubt here that he might come and kind of tell us that formally. But I think that's the idea, is that Troy would eventually roll off, meaning I have kind of a few open board slots, unfortunately.
Okay.
I think he's staying through the session, Jessica. So I think he'll be around till at least May or June.
Okay, perfect. I don't know why he wants to stay through the session.
I don't know either.
He's got to be crazy. One last hurrah.
Hey, Carson, is the reason that some people can't participate have anything to do with timing, or is it just they don't have the overall bandwidth?
That's a really good question. I think I said it maybe before you joined the call. It seems like a lot of people have conflicts at this time, and I'd love to talk about polling and changing the time of this meeting in the future. So maybe that's the reason. I haven't heard that personally.
Okay.
When I've asked people to join, like Premier Members Credit Union, it's mostly just been a bandwidth thing, even though I would say the lift on this board is pretty small. And I don't ask a ton, but I will ask more probably next year as we try to grow the board and grow our membership funding. But it's really not that big of an ask, I don't think.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what's happening currently in legislative world. Years ago, when we had a big interest in this board, it was because of the transportation overkill that they were trying to push through. We haven't had that now for a couple of years, and so it doesn't feel like the need is immediate for some of these businesses. But obviously the timing of the people going back in person is going to impact the drive times and everything else. And like Nathan, I guess you couldn't get on the bus this morning, so I'm open to whatever we need to do to move it to get more interest. But I also think some of these organizations have now had a different reorg structure that doesn't allow for them to have someone on the board, or as we're seeing, unfortunately, that local match participation or even just regular membership participation. So I think we have a lot of work to do with this group right now in order to grow the board, and whether that's changing the time, how do we get more money to come in, and trying to emphasize the need for a voice in the North on transportation resources.
And I think just on my end, I'd like to add, maybe this is something, and I know we haven't gotten into our work plan necessarily, but is this something that we dig into a little bit more outside of just like a monthly meeting, right? Is this something where like a few of us are able to sit down a little bit more regularly and help you, Carson, with brainstorming potential business, potential participation? I'm sure there may be people out there that want to participate that may not be able to do the third Wednesday at an 8 a.m., but they still want to participate somehow, right? And we just haven't been able to think through that. So again, not sure if it's in the work plan, but maybe it's a separate effort where some of us can really put our heads together and look at membership opportunities in maybe a non-traditional way that still supports the mission.
I think, Nathan, I've been having, and the rest of the board, Carson and I have been having, let's call it hallway conversations back and forth a little bit about with the growth in Adams County and where some of these big employers are going, how far is our reach? And then is that an opportunity to bring additional people into these conversations, because you know from the bus tours how much we have going on in different areas of the county that need to get their workers to their locations. So I just think that might open up, and there's examples like how far into Commerce City you go, or where do you go there, right?
Mhm.
And Brighton with all those big plans along 76. So
Absolutely.
Really,
So are we hearing
help-
maybe like a subcommittee to sort of take a look at this in a deeper dive with the map, the reach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my thought, and I know that sometimes subcommittees can make more work and whatnot, so I may regret what I'm getting into here, but I think at the same time, there's there's an effort to this, right? And we have these meetings monthly and they're great, but I think there's only so much we can do like in an hour. And maybe it's worth sort of a separate effort among a few of us to really see what our reach is, to Lisa's point, and what opportunities are out there and how we can leverage our individual networks for the purpose of this board.
I
That would be
volunteer to brainstorm.
helpful.
Yeah.
I will I'll take it upon myself to kind of start this effort as we head into next year, kind of get a subcommittee pulled together of a few voices in the room and open it up to anybody that's willing to join. Maybe we can
Sounds
just
like
find
Nathan
a
wants
time.
to lead that.
Yeah, I think I found my chair, and maybe vice chair and Lisa.
That's right.
I'm just kidding. I don't think we need that much formality. I just need a little help here, right? I think it's informally happened a little bit easier when we were in person, even when we were sharing a space with the old, the economic development group. It's become a little bit harder. And I had a kind of a visioning session with my team as we move into next year with all of this new programming we're bringing to the table about how are we still serving our mission day to day. We had a half day kind of retreat, so to speak, in Lisa's office, and it was great. But the number one thing that I took out of there is, how do we show our value? Is it that we're helping traffic? Is it that we're helping sustainability? Is it that we're helping people get access to NADA so they can kind of understand what's going on at a regional level? I think there's a lot of different value pots that this board can bring to the table, and unpacking that a little bit with each one of you guys could be really helpful for me as we try to build this thing and I get some direction moving forward.
Sounds like a good plan. I think we should even try to do an in-person strategy session sometime early in the first quarter would be helpful.
We can make that happen. Absolutely, in January. So I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for the direction. I was hoping that's where this might lead. So I'm glad it led there, and I'll be happy to do the work to get us to the finish line. I'm going to move us now while we still have a quorum. I know Kyle just kind of I think maybe got to his computer, and we can talk a little about our executive board vote. The indication I got was that we just keep it the same this next year as we head into a next year. I've gotten confirmation, at least from the chair, and I hope from Waddy and Nathan, that we'll be able to keep this same structure moving forward. If there's any interest in changing it, now's the time to talk about it, but I felt good about this kind of leadership and availability as we head into the next year. But if there's no conversation, I'll look for a vote or a motion, Chair.
Any conversation, comments, thoughts?
Thank you to the slate.
I just want to thank Jessica and the rest of, and of course, Carson and your staff for leading the way and making it happen. Thank you for your time and the efforts. But I move if.
All right, we
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? None. Go ahead and say yes if you accept that motion.
Yes.
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 Yes. Any opposed, say no. All right, well, looks like we have the 2024 executive board. I appreciate everybody on this call. It's been a strange couple of years with the transition out of the building, COVID, we're still online. So I think looking at what we just heard from Lisa and Nathan moving into next year, I would like to try to do more in person, not necessarily every month, but maybe once a quarter, just to kind of get back into the groove of things. And let's definitely take a look at the timing and the day of the week to see if there's an opportunity to move that to get more participation somehow.
And we're happy to host that. So, and we could also do the online hybrid if necessary, but we have plenty of room. I'm not
And
getting
where
out
are
of
you
my
at,
lease.
Lisa?
I'm not getting out of my lease for the next 3 years, so I need to start utilizing the space.
Where's your location at?
122nd. It's right across the street from the old Pecos building.
Oh,
It's a community
okay.
read center.
Oh,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're happy to host.
Very good.
Lisa's always
All
my
right.
go-to when I need office space because we don't have it, and I so rarely need it, but sometimes we do. And you're always very kind to offer up your nice lease. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's nice to have company.
Yes. All right, well, that's it in terms of kind of board discussion and motions and things like that. I have a couple of action items: form a committee, get a poll going, think about more in-person voting or more in-person meetings next year, maybe quarterly. You know, I had anticipated doing that. We had the Flex Ride tour, we had the bike tour, kind of a couple of in-person things. If I could have added maybe one or maybe two more in there, I would have felt pretty good about it. But unfortunately, time got away with me. Time got away from me with all these events and grants and things. So need to do a little bit better job about how we get together in person next year. Let's see, where am I? 2023 annual review, and then our 2024 work plan. So this is one big thing. You may remember last year we had an opportunity to kind of create an annual review for 2022, first time ever. Not many TMOs do it. It kind of spawned out of this idea that we're kind of struggling to showcase our value, and we thought this would be a nice document for me and everyone on the call to go out there and say, hey, look, I'm on this board, or I'm the executive director of this organization that does all of these great things, and here's our strategic initiatives heading into the next year. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, show you the annual review for the first time, its final draft form, and then we can discuss our 2024 work plan at the back end of that. And I'd like your kind of feedback on what that looks like, both in a public and then in a not public way as we kind of roll this document out. Let me change my screen share so I can actually show you the PDF. All right. Does that look okay for everybody? I know it's a different size. Okay, thanks. So Danielle on our team, who's not on the call today, worked really hard on the graphic design here. And we had input from Tammy, Jean, Catherine, and myself to make sure that this thing looked pretty good. So this is really a full team effort. I just want to acknowledge all the hard work that went into it from very beginning to the very end. And as you can see at the top, this is draft number 7. It's more like draft number 15, but we've put some hard work in trying to make sure this makes some sense for the team. So our annual review, our mission on the move 2023. Table of contents, what we're going to go through today, just some basic things. Let me let Waddy back in here. He's off the phone now. Just some opening message, growth in the North, setting the stage, focus on sustainability. And then we're going to look back at our 2023 highlights and our impact and our outreach, and then a little bit about our commuter survey data. And then we'll look forward to 2024 with what we're calling our trail guide, which is our work plan for 2024, which is where I wanted to have a bit of a discussion here today. I'll be sure we get there before the end of the time because I won't spend much time on the first couple of parts. A message from me, just a kind of a quick snapshot of what we've done over the last year. I won't read this right now, and my team's making me keep this embarrassing picture because they say it looks okay, but it's not my favorite, but that's okay. It's at the Denver Premium Outlets bus plaza, which is absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, it's on the I-25 side, so it's very loud and doesn't get utilized as much. We'd love to move it over to the other side, even though we know that that's not possible. Anyway, this is a little message from me that we like to have at the very beginning. As we get into setting the stage for why the heck should you care about this annual review? Why should you care about Smart Commute? What's the point of this whole thing? I'd point out 2 main things. One is maintaining our quality of life life through heavy growth periods like we're having, and two is just a focus on sustainability. So first is maintaining our kind of Colorado quality of life through growth. On the left-hand side, you see a couple of numbers. We pulled these out last year through a lot of work with Dr. Cog staff and CDOT staff to make sure we understood what was going on in terms of growth in our transportation investments. And we've kept those this year because we think they're pretty important. We'll probably reevaluate that next year. Over the last 10 years, roughly 2010 to 2020, we had a 50% basically increase in employment. We had a 17% increase in population across the Smart Commute region. And we had a 36% increase in dollars being spent on multimodal infrastructure as opposed to the years 2000 to 2010. So we're moving in the right direction, but things are growing at a very rapid pace. And we will have to keep up with that with more multimodal infrastructure and kind of investments and improvements. At the bottom here, we're pointing out this kind of these large bubbles only to say exactly what I said above in a different way. Our communities in the North area are growing at the fastest rates throughout the state. Longmont actually saw the kind of highest number of population growth over the kind of 2017 to 2022 period of any other kind of area in the state, 6.9%, which is pretty heavy. Obviously, Thornton and Westminster are in there too. We could have put other communities in here, but these are just ones we pulled out. And then I wanted to showcase Denver is not growing at quite the rate that these other communities are. And I think that's probably obvious to all of you on the call because of the way COVID's impacting downtowns across the country. But it's important to realize just how quickly our region is growing as compared to other regions. Questions or comments on setting the stage, growth in the North?
I love these slides because it's very helpful and easy talking points.
Hey, Carson, when Elizabeth Garner speaks at State Demographer, she always talks about the fastest growing be Southwest Weld County. And I know that's right over the border, but we don't capture those numbers at all.
No, we do, Lisa. I think she's probably right. If you combine communities together, Frederick, Firestone, Dacono, maybe portions of Erie, right? Yeah. It's just when you split them out into each individual community, the numbers don't resonate quite as much. We do capture those. It's just, I would have to say Southwest Weld, and maybe that doesn't mean as much to me at a high level. Yeah, just a personal decision to not include that, include some of these others.
Okay.
Hey, Carson.
And then go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Jessica. You finished.
No, you go ahead.
Like I say, I do like the percentages. I think they do sell a story, but it's also helpful to put those percentages into context. So, for example, 36% toward non-driving modes. That could be, $5 extra, or it could be 5 million or 50 million. So grounding that in actual dollars could make sense. And again, this is great. I think it does tell a good story, but what does 36% really mean?
Yeah, it's a big number, right? And I think you know that, we know that, but maybe not everybody knows that. So it's a good point. And I think on the right, you're seeing what I've written out is we're headed in the right direction, but we need more. And these changes aren't going to make sense overnight, right? A bike lane here and there is not going to make a difference overnight. There's got to be a full system before it works. That's what we're trying to say.
And then keep in mind next year, Thornton is up for, we've already submitted the new permit application to Fort Collins or Larimer County. So that March hearing will definitely change our numbers from 4.2% to a much higher number, since we have many developments waiting for that water to come.
Yeah, it's going to be a big number. That's why I said this year I kept it, but maybe next year I'm going to change a lot of these numbers. Anyway, setting the stage on the growth piece, right? This is a bit of the pain of why we exist. Now we're going to focus on a bit of the kind of, it's still pain, but it's a little bit different, right? Sustainability. This is the two-part equation to why we do what we do. Congestion mitigation, air quality. This is the air quality side of things. A continued focus on sustainability, and this year, and its impact on our health. There's just been a lot of kind of information out there about how negatively air quality is negative, or bad air quality is impacting our health. We want to connect this down to the kind of core level for people to understand that, maybe your kind of mode choice does have an impact on things like at the bottom here, dementia, type 2 diabetes, asthma, things like that. There's been a lot of studies that we looked into to kind of connect that back to the personal piece. At the top, we got a couple of stats here that I think maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. Transportation is the #1 greenhouse gas emitter in the state of Colorado. We're here to try to help be a tool in the toolkit to help fix that problem. And improved air quality can have positive impacts on our health, right? We always feel better when the air is a little bit cleaner. We don't have those brown cloud days. And I know a lot of that's not our fault, where it blows in and gets settled in the basin, and we can't control that. But we'd like to say that people do have a little bit of autonomy in terms of controlling the air quality that we all breathe every day. And then in the middle, these are just a number of stats. And I know contextually they can be a little bit complicated, but what we're trying to do here is just paint a picture that there's a lot of gas being burned, and there's a lot of CO2 being emitted because of that gas being burned. That's essentially what we're saying over the last year. We had a hard time finding our 2023 average gallon of gas number because it wasn't quite time yet, so we used the year before. But these are all pretty accurate numbers in terms of kind of our output as a community, as a state, of what's being burned and utilized for our state. And then at the bottom, I just kind of go into talking about the personal connection to negative health impacts and how Denver Metro is one of the worst ozone areas in the country. Questions, comments on sustainability, setting the stage?
Sorry, this is Carson. Just another thing. I'm sometimes a stickler on stats because they're so important to get right.
Sure.
I'm not sure I understand the 241,000 gallons of fuel burned in just by people who responded to the survey. I'm just not sure what that number is saying.
Yeah, it's a good question, Kyle. And I think we could probably actually update this, because just last night we were able to finalize our 2023 report. It's just saying that the people that responded to our North Metro commuter survey burned this number of gallons of gasoline. And that number of gallons of gasoline kind of emits a certain amount of CO2 into the atmosphere and costs a certain dollar amount as well. So
I think
that's what
the
we're trying to
problem is, though,
convey.
that doesn't really mean anything without, I mean, how many people responded to the survey? So I would suggest maybe that's a less relevant stat than some of the other things that we have, or maybe it's relevant, but it just doesn't, at least it doesn't tell me.
Yep.
I'm not sure how to interpret it. That's all.
Well, this is helpful. Thank you.
Or is it somehow the inverse of our efforts have reduced gallons burned, perhaps?
That's a good point, Nathan.
I don't want brainstorming here a little bit. It's, so people drove, right, to burn that many gallons, and I don't know if it's here, but if it's in another part of it, but demonstrate how much gallons were saved. The inverse, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oops.
Back to the question of what value is this organization adding? To the extent we can tie some of that reduction in fuels to efforts that Smart Commute has been doing. And it may be in here later on.
It is, but it might be worth stating again, right? I think we saved 247 CO2 tons because of the kind of carpooling programs and the aggregates of all the things that we do. We're able to calculate that number. So maybe that is a more impactful number than the gallons of gasoline burned by our commuter survey respondents. That's helpful. We'll have to put a little bit of thought into it before we formally put this thing out next week.
So who does this go to, Carson? Who's the audience, I guess?
Well, it's a pretty wide audience. I think first and foremost, I want this to be kind of a membership recruitment tool for me and the board as we're out there talking to people to say, hey, here's our impact. But I also think it's kind of a value add and a re-recruitment tool for our existing members to say there is an impact, and this is why I should keep supporting Smart Commute. And that includes all the different jurisdictions that support us through NADA. It's kind of a here's what we're doing, and here's what we've been doing, and here's where we're headed document in a formal way. It was pretty helpful last year. I got a lot of positive feedback on it in Q1 and Q2. It fades off throughout the year, but those are the primary audiences I'm thinking of: existing members and then new member recruitment. And maybe beyond that, if people want to read it.
Just wondering if there's more infographic options. It's pretty wordy, which is good. The information is good, but for a person who's not necessarily involved, there's just going to be a lot of numbers and words on this page. Is there something that's even just a one pager that could be, cartoon infographics that has something that shows sustainability and impact? And I could be way out of the lane here, but because I'm not creative enough to come up with something like that, but it must be something that could show, the horrible health conditions and how we're helping and the tons of whatever that other graphic was that you had on the other page. Just something that's more of a one pager. Here's what we got. If you want more information, here's the details.
I agree with Jessica. I think, Carson, would be helpful to have a one pager, especially like we just did with legislative policies. So now we have a 5x7. That's the attention span of some people that you'll get their attention. And if you have those big numbers bold on it, I think the report, it's great to have the full report, but it's also great to have a small synopsis.
Yeah, it's really good feedback, and something I didn't mention before is last year I ended up pulling a lot of these individual pages out and using them as one sheeters, and they don't all work like that, but I think the feedback you're giving me is maybe this page could be tweaked to work like that. I want this to be a multi-use document, and if somebody's more interested in sustainability than they are kind of growth in the North area, I want to be able to pull this out and say, hey, look, here's our impact on sustainability last year, and that's why you should care.
And more pictures.
I think you're hearing the need for an executive summary. That's really what folks are saying.
Yeah, totally. Shorter. And we have different stuff for that. This is kind of a longer form, but I hear you.
I agree. I love where this is going for sure. Good information that attention spans are indeed very short.
Yes, they are. I think this next slide is where I would probably hand out as an individual, and we can cut the text down as I'm hearing today. Maybe it's too much text, but this is kind of a highlight of 2023, right? What did we do and how did it respond to our work plan from last year? Number one thing on our work plan from last year was make a plan for the Flex Ride, the Wagon Road Flex Ride. It's joined the RTD system through our hard work and ridership that's out there riding it, and all the kind of private companies that have allowed us to be able to continue that service. So happy with that result. Number two, we had Bike to Work Day station expansion for the first time in a long time in the North Metro. We had 2 brand new stations come online at Baseline and Denver Premium Outlets. E-bike program enrolled new participants. We had 22 total participants over the last year that enrolled in our low-income loan-to-own e-bike program. We're proud of that stat. Number 4, we had the beginning of the Broomfield North Flex Ride. We were able to work with City and County of Broomfield to use some of their grant funding that was just sitting there not being used by RTD and start a whole new Flex Ride and connect it down to our Wagon Road Flex Ride and the Broomfield existing Flex Ride, just trying to fill a gap in the north side that's growing so rapidly and has a lot of need for microtransit. And then the bottom piece was Smart Commute triples its grants. We were able to go after a number of grants, and it's going to allow us to kind of deliver a lot more programs next year. But it was a big win for us in 2023 just to get awarded these grants. So these were our highlights in 2023 we wanted to bring to the front, and then just a couple of stats across the middle there that kind of highlight exactly what I just said for those that don't want to read what's on the screen. Questions or comments about our 2023 highlights and what it says to you?
Could you include in the e-bike program just the low income participants? Because I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of who we're actually supporting in that.
I'll probably say income verified.
Yeah.
Just to be politically correct in this public of a document, but yeah. Okay.
Is there one of these that is sort of like, I'm just kind of looking at like the order, right? Are they listed in a particular order or no order necessarily, or is there one that like we're most proud of that sticks out that's really, really exciting that would highlight over the others, or are they all equally sort of important in that order? You know what I mean? Like I think
Yep.
Just personally speaking, I think we launched that Broomfield North Flex Ride. And I think that's really big, right? I think that's really, really important. So not necessarily super important at the end of the day, but I would just maybe see which one of these are maybe most exciting or sort of more pertinent and new, and see if there's an order of those. That's all.
Yeah, maybe I even eliminate some of the numbers. I think most important for me was number 1, Wagon Road Flex Ride joins the RTD system, and the rest of them all seemed important, but
yeah,
we just use numbers instead of bullets. So maybe it's just bulleting.
Yeah.
Or
And pictures.
reorganizing.
Again, I go back to the pictures and images because it's just words on a page. So if you could put a flex ride bus or a bike, or even under the Smart Commute triples as grants 3 times with a dollar sign, just to capture their eyes to, oh, 3 times. Otherwise it's just words. And it's sorry to be so nitpicky, Carson.
No, this is fine. I'm opening myself up for this here. This is what I'm doing this on purpose. I know I'm going to get some nitpicky comments, and as you all know, I may not take 100% of them all into account when we roll this thing out. I have a deadline, but that's why I'm having this conversation, because I need it to work for each of you. Because if we form this subcommittee and this is a document that we can use to hand out to people to recruit, it needs to work for all of us. All right, next was just our impact. And I think this was us kind of trying to pull back a little bit from all these programmatic pieces and just say at a high level, this is why it matters. We highlighted a couple of pieces of text on the right. I won't read that, but it's basically just trying to pull out our impact at a various different levels, personal level, regional level, and then beyond. And then on the left, we kind of have a lot of different stats, right? 247 tons of CO2 saved last year. We eliminated 64,000 car trips, and we saved the community $100,000 in fuel alone, according to our North Metro commuter survey only. I'm sure it's more than that, but that's what we can account for. And then we said on the bottom right, what the heck does 247 CO2 tons look like? What does that mean? It just means that 247 trees absorb 247 tons of CO2 over 40 years. So it's significant. We're trying to paint a picture that what we're doing here is, eliminating a lot, and it takes a lot to kind of mitigate that CO2. Again, kind of a lot of text here, but this is a part of the long form review that maybe won't get printed as a one-sheeter, or maybe I would change out the right column if I did. Here's our pictures. Unfortunately, this is the only area I've put pictures. Jessica, I just kind of waned away from them this year for some reason or another, but it made some more sense in the outreach area. So we like to highlight our outreach each year, but I think this year specifically, because of this stat on the bottom right, we conducted 42% more events in 2023 as compared to 2022 due to our increased focus on community level interactions in the region. It's even more than we did in 2019 pre-COVID. We're being asked to be a lot of places right now, and I think we're going to have to look hard and fast about which ones we attend next year, because we were stretched pretty thin throughout the summer. But I'm pretty proud of the fact that we were out there in the community doing all of these different numbers here at the bottom. We had 15 info booths, 26 RTD events, and we held 27 events at regional employers throughout the year. And then a bunch of pictures here at the top from Bike to Work Day at North Glen, and then this was the Adams County station, and then this was Baseline's kind of end of work pizza party Bike to Work Day station. And we had over 1,100 community interactions from all these different events. We were pretty proud of.
Is that Kyle on a bike?
Yeah.
In Baseline? No.
No.
And there's no Nathan picture on a bike. I mean,
I know.
It's not the most beautiful thing. Don't worry about it.
Is there an opportunity for any of us to participate or go to any? I mean, this is a lot of events, and so even if it's just networking, we don't necessarily have to have a booth and set up if that's the case. But these are also opportunities for us to speak to individuals that are using other mobility types. So
same here. I love a good pop-up booth. Carson, sign me up, man. I love it. So if there's opportunities to get out there, at least from the board, we'd love to, help out and just be extra bodies and hands. Bikes and pizzas are always fun, right?
I think we saw the pictures and we're like, oh my gosh, none of us are in these pictures. So we gotta do better than this.
Come on.
So yes,
Well,
let's do better. It's a challenge.
part of that's my fault, right? I didn't engage the board this year as much as I have in years past. I think that's part of the reason why we're virtual. It makes it hard to feel like we should be there in person together. But I think we do need to do a better idea of kind of listing our calendar next year. We're about to employ a new task management software at Smart Commute. It's going to help us kind of plan out these events more than just a week in advance, so that we could ask, hey, 6 weeks out, could you be at this Saturday event for a couple of hours? It makes sense for your community impact. Then we'll feel better about asking. I just don't want to text you a week before and say, hey, can you be here? I want to be more thoughtful about your time than that.
Is the calendar available publicly? Even just having sort of what's coming in the next 6 months helps.
Yeah, Tammy does a really good job of highlighting it in our newsletter monthly about what's coming up. But again, it changes monthly. It's so quick a lot of times. I think we just need to have a little bit better indication of what's to come a little bit further out.
Okay.
And I'd love help. It's hard. Sometimes I think at the beginning of the year, I love pop-up tents, and by the end, I hate them. I'm done. There's too many pop-up events. Couple of more slides here, but I think I'm just going to run through them quickly so we can get to the 2024 work plan. This is a easy one here, our North Metro Commuter Survey, and we'll change the title here, but it's just showing that from 2019 to 2023, our SOV rate, single occupancy vehicle rate, has fallen, and that's basically because of telework. But that doesn't mean that we're headed in the right direction always. Carpool's down 20%. That's bad. We need to bring that back up as people go into the office. Bike is even down regionally across our survey results. And transit is pretty much stagnant, which is not great either. We want to make sure we're seeing people get back on transit in a post-COVID environment. I think at the bottom here, I really want to show this is something the most important piece of our commuter survey, in my opinion. I know my team may not agree with me. We asked people, what are you most interested in learning about? What would you care about if you wanted to learn about a commute mode? This is what people said. They want to learn about compressing their work week, teleworking, of course, so they don't have to be in an office all the time. But 15% of people want to learn more about transit. This is a big opportunity for us. If we could have a mode shift of 15% to go to transit, if it works for them, that would be magnificent. So we use this as a tool when we were talking to HR to say, hey, look, 15% of your workforce wants to learn more about transit. Eco passes are cheap right now. You got a bus stop right over here that might or might not work for your people. Let's think about it. Same with biking and carpooling. Just trying to connect real data back to what people want. Comments from the survey. I won't read all these, but we like to pull out a few kind of personal level comments from people. We read a ton of them every year. I think it was 1,700 or something this year. And we kind of categorize them and then report out on them. We think it's important to understand what people are seeing at the ground level so we don't get our head buried in a hole and think we're always right about biking or transit. The thing I want to talk about the most here is I hate driving and want to take the bus, but the local buses only run once an hour. Please make the buses possible to use for me. This is what we hear a lot in our area. It just doesn't quite work for people. And we want to highlight that so that we can continue our advocacy for better opportunities in the future. There's some positive ones in there as well, but we like to point out the negative ones and not ignore them. All right, I'm going to skip this and come right back to it. This is our last page. We have our kind of partners here. The only thing that's changed this year I wanted to point out is a couple of new, a couple of old, kind of gold level, top level partners, people giving us more than the kind of base level $2,000 a year to be a member of Smart Commute. Adams County contributes to our CMAQ local match every year, which is like $24,000. We think that's worth kind of showcasing here. Westminster, Thornton, and Broomfield have helped, and North Glen have helped us keep our e-bike and flex ride program growing with additional kind of local match funding in the background for a long time. I think it's worth it, kind of recognizing them here as going above and beyond. So those are the only changes on the partner pages here as we thank our partners at the very bottom. All right, we only have 8 minutes. I'm sorry, I always do this, but here's our 2024 trail guide. This is our work plan for next year. And I think kind of on the private side, I have a pretty good idea of what to do. But on the public side, we like this to be the showcase. And I'd like your feedback. I know what you're probably going to say, probably too much text here, but I will go into what each one of these is, and I won't read them though. The first is overhauling employer outreach. We had this on our list last year, but unfortunately we didn't do as good of a job as I would have liked to. And now with Danielle, with the whole 8 months under her belt, we can really launch into a new year. We have an alternative transportation tax credit for 1 more year. RTD fares and eco passes are coming way down, and we have better bike and pedestrian infrastructure now than we ever had before in the North area. So we're really going to try to lean on our employer outreach program into the next year, our bread and butter. The next is kind of accelerating our e-mobility hub pilot program with a number of grants that we got this next year. We just want to deliver 1 or more kind of e-mobility hub pilot programs at different locations across the North area with strategic partners. We're kind of looking at this as a continuation of our 144th kind of mobility project, right? This is the next iteration of how we do first and last mile connections at activity centers. And it'll just be a pilot to start, and we can maybe replicate it in the future in other areas. The next is to kind of revitalize or reinvent that bike gap analysis part 2. We wanted to do this last year, but didn't get the funding in time. Now we have the funding starting actually in 2 days from CDOT to be able to start running a bike gap analysis part 2, which will lead into a North area bike map, identifying the gaps in the area and the kind of routes that we think are safest, and then where we can kind of prioritize infrastructure improvements moving forward to make sure that what we're advocating for makes some sense. And then the last piece there is delivering a flex ride optimization plan. This is our TDM set aside funding that we got awarded through DRCOG this year, or that will kick in next year. We're kind of build off the 144th Flex Ride demonstration project, right? The whole idea there was this is a demand-driven microtransit service that services workforce. We want to take that, what we call optimization of a Flex Ride, and push it out to other Flex Rides across the North area with some kind of back-end technology that we've been able to utilize and we'll be able to purchase to say, you have work centers here and here. Maybe the Flex Ride map should move this way or that way, or maybe we should run a fixed route within that Flex Ride for a couple of hours a day to serve shift workers. And then in the middle of the day, it can be on demand like ours or something of the sort. But we want to deliver a Flex Ride optimization program by the end of the year, next year, to RTD to say, do you want to implement this? And how can we implement it to make sure Flex Rides are servicing an area that already has enough transit challenges, and maybe this is a good solution for our region. And then at the bottom, these are just our grants listed out, the ones that were awarded for next year. 3 different things here. There's really 4, but they're kind of all playing off of each other. Flex Ride optimization study and program. This is our TDM set aside one on the left here. The big kahuna, so to speak, for our additional grants next year. And then Flex Ride optimization and e-mobility hub support. This is RTD partnership funding that we're playing off of the other 2 grants to the left and the right. The right one is bike gap analysis, resource maps, and e-mobility hubs. Our CDOT TMO support grant is going to support 3 different things. And those are the 3 projects that we're going to support with that grant heading into next year. So it's kind of a complicated grant setup, but essentially we're going to deliver a number of projects trying to kind of leverage public dollars off of public dollars to bring mobility to the North area. All right, I only left 4 or 5 minutes for comments, but I'm happy to go over if people have them, and obviously can send this around for more comments later. But this is our 2024 trail guide at a high level that I'd like to show off in a public way to say that we're bringing all these things to the area. Comments, questions, thoughts from the group? Happy with the direction as the board, or no?
Yeah, Carson, I'm very happy with the direction. Really 2 questions. When we're talking about e-mobility hubs, what specifically does that mean to you? And then I have another question after that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it means some form of an e-bike library or shared system. It's going to look different in different areas, and we're already engaging in conversations with people to try to figure out what that might look like around the 144th system. Is it a subscription service? Is it an actual shared system? So the reason it's not defined is because we don't know quite yet. We need to know what they want first.
So it is e-bikes is really okay. That's
it could be regular bikes, but we think e-bikes are more tenable right now. People don't really want to ride regular bikes right now for some reason.
One thing I'd mentioned is that I was in a meeting with Broomfield earlier this week, and they are trying to figure out their e-scooter policy. I did not realize that they were not legal currently in Broomfield, and we certainly want to encourage that. Don't know if there's an opportunity for this group or Smart Commute specifically to serve as a voice of expertise in that area, but it might be a way to insert ourselves, and especially given that Broomfield is one of our funding partners. The second thing that came to mind is, I know over the course of time we've always had some pulse on what the large funding opportunities are, whether it's state grants or federal grants. And the one piece, and I keep having this nagging feeling that our region is not getting its fair share of the big dollars that may be out there. And so I'll just ask, and maybe NETA is the better venue for this, but somehow is there an opportunity, or should it be part of this trail guide, that we keep our finger not only on the pulse of what's going on, but we also advocate on behalf of this region for getting those big dollars. We need that seat at the table when those conversations are happening. And I'm just wondering if that is one piece that others on the board think could or should be added to this trail guide.
So Kyle, that's one of the conversations actually Carson and I were having, because Smart Commute's a 501c3, and I think he has some restrictions on certain lobbying, but we're a 501c6. So could AC Rep partner better with Smart Commute and be that more lobbying voice? Is just one idea we talked about too.
And keep in mind, the cities involved in this are also lobbying and applying for those big IIJA grants. And so maybe it's more of a, what are we doing and what have we applied for?
Yeah, these are all really interesting and helpful comments, right? I think I don't want to be blind to the fact that Karen was excellent at understanding the regional pots, and maybe that's not my forte as much as it was hers. I'm interested in kind of the Smart Commute pieces, but that doesn't mean I'm neglecting them. I've only segmented them, Kyle, into NETA a little bit more than maybe she did. So I've kind of, as Jessica said, the cities are all applying for these grants and they're bringing dollars to the table to make sure that we get these big infrastructure projects. I've decided to segment that conversation into NETA a little bit more, because it seems slightly more appropriate for them than Smart Commute to go after that conversation. But that doesn't mean I can't bring you updates about what's happening. And I think maybe what I'm hearing is there needs to be a bit of an update on where we are in some of those kind of efforts.
It would be helpful for me, because I think some of those that's where there's some real needle moving opportunities. And when I hear that the individual cities are going after grants, I have to hope that through the NETA organization, yes, they're individual grants, but they are done in conjunction with each other in pursuit of a larger goal. And having that update, and maybe that is the more appropriate thing, to make sure that that is an update that this board is able to hear. It's certainly very relevant in the work that we're doing.
But then
Dr. Cog is going to be where that information comes out of, and that is a regional effort as well as a local.
I think we should definitely have a pulse or some type of role from a TMO perspective on sort of those individual initiatives like scooters in Broomfield, right? Like that is a transportation management initiative that I think we should be certainly folded into. We should have whatever operator is, going to be in Broomfield on our board, right? Paying a lot of money for the membership as well. So I think there's a fine balance there. And I know there's a line between the advocacy of NETA and this group, but I mean, I think some of those individual initiatives, individual projects from a transportation management perspective are still very critical and should be folded into this somehow.
Something to chew on here.
I've got to hop to another meeting, but I hear what you guys are saying, and at least for my comment on, maybe it doesn't need to be added as a specific column on this trail guide, but if those NETA updates on what the regional pieces are, if that could be incorporated into our meeting, that would certainly be helpful to me, if it would be helpful for others on the board. And then I'll just mention one other thing, because I know we got to talk about timing. My only concern with Wednesday mornings is I'm always driving up to Loveland in the morning, so that's why I'm typically now on the phone. So I don't know if it's a doodle poll or anything, but I'm open to other suggestions, and let me know what the group thinks. So, and I apologize for having to leave.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'll do a
Kyle.
doodle.
Thank you.
I need to jump
Good
to
one.
Carson because I've got another 9 o'clock. But this
Yeah.
looks great program, and I'll see some of you tomorrow. So
Yeah, I'll,
thanks.
thank you. I'll be a little bit strategic on my NADA updates to the group. We're doing a lot of work on the project list. I couldn't get that
And
in
I can
before
help
Kyle
you
had
with
to
that
leave.
as well,
Yeah,
Carson.
thank you.
So,
Thank
yeah.
you. I know we're
Well,
over time. Anything else?
Thank you,
I don't-
Carson.
I don't see
Thank
any
you,
others.
Carson.
Great
Yeah.
work.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.
Yeah, thanks guys. Happy holidays and appreciate the feedback. Watch for it coming out next week.
All
Thank
right.
you.
With that, we'll go ahead and say goodbye. And some of you will see tomorrow at NADA. Thanks,
All right.
Carson.
Yeah,
That's all.
thanks guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.